Have you guys ever just had a really bad day? A day where, like the wise philosopher Fred Durst once said, where everything is fucked and everybody sucks? Well, our boy Guts has had one of those days virtually every single day of his life since he was born, amplified by 1,000. Berserk may be a series that shows us the true realities of what it means to be human, and facing the never-ending struggle of choosing to move forward despite horrific surrounding circumstances, but even a man as strong as Guts has his various breaking points. The internalized trauma combined with the consistently attacking outside forces causes very specific moments within the manga where Guts, either purposely or slightly against his own will, must block out all other things and focus on nothing but the drive to destroy in order to ensure his own survival. Something that is useful, but other times incredibly destructive to himself and those around him. So, let's take a minute to reflect on the series and cover the top 10 times Guts went berserk in Berserk. In terms of how I'm ranking this, to me, I'm ranking them in the idea of how much these Berserk moments psychologically and physically damaged Guts in the process. So for instance, it's about how much the Berserk moment caused serious repercussions in his life, or at least impacted him a lot. And there are plenty of moments to choose from, so if I left a few out, that's only because this is only going to be a top 10. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, be sure to do so and turn on the bell notifications. If you do, you will be invited to my 100k subscriber pizza party. And I don't want to give away everybody who's going to show up, but we might have 4 or 5 very special guests there ready to give you the sickest permanent tattoo that you've ever had. So, without further ado, please subscribe to the channel, and here's the top 10. At number 10, I have when Guts faced the Boar Apostle, which was the first apostle that he came in contact with after the eclipse. This is hitting number 10 because this battle was mostly just symbolism of things to come. It was the beginning of his journey as the Black Swordsman and the first instance of him using the Dragon Slayer as his primary weapon. This moment would be a sign of things to come and what would be the norm for Guts pretty soon, so it has significance there, but it's also responsible for giving us this iconic image of Guts just outright flying into a rage, taking all those emotions of the eclipse and letting them loose on this poor, unsuspecting, monstrous demon. At number 9, I have Guts versus the 100 shooter soldiers. In this moment, Guts mostly retains his sanity, and the repercussions are primarily physical, but you don't kill 100 men in a row in one night without tapping into some berserker rage. I would also say that there is added significance to this fight, even though Guts doesn't realize it. It's one of the first instances where he is fighting for a purpose, and that purpose being to protect Casca, which again was a precursor for something that would become his eventual norm, and perhaps what gave Guts that extra strength and motivation to continue to cut all of them down, even if Guts himself doesn't quite realize that's the reason yet. At number 8, I'm putting the rescue of Griffith from the Midland Dungeon. Now, I know eventually Guts swears to destroy Griffith, but in this moment, Griffith still represents someone whom Guts admired, respected, and gave Guts a sense of direction and unity, a family-like bond within the Band of the Hawk, and something Guts had never experienced before. So, when Guts sees what's become of Griffith, horrendously tortured for a year, and sees the glee that that little crack-out torture had in it, and the soldiers that want to stop them from escaping, Guts goes into a vengeful-fueled rage and just lays waste to these Midland soldiers. My favorite is this one guy that talks a big game about how to defeat Guts, and before he even finishes his sentence, Guts just jumps up in the air and decapitates the shit out of him. Oh, it's so good. At number 7, I have to go with Guts torturing the Count, the first main antagonist that we have in the manga before it goes into the Golden Age backstory, and we still don't know why Guts is so damaged, but we see it's not just about killing the apostles, but shoving it in their faces about how weak and helpless they can be, making them feel human, and essentially doing to them how the Hawks felt during the eclipse. Guts uses the Count's daughter as bait, slices his head off, and then uses a small knife to continuously stab and torture the Count with an insane amount of glee on his face the entire time, embracing himself within the cruelty and even in front of the Count's own daughter. And hey, I'm not saying that the Count didn't have this coming, but the point is what's happening to Guts in the process while he's going berserk. At number 6, I'm putting the battle against the trolls in Clip-Off. I still don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm going with it. a dark, disgusting layer of the astral world that had overlapped with the physical, bringing Guts into the den of the monstrous troll creatures that get off on killing, maiming, and having their way with human women. Guts finds himself alone and fully able to unleash absolute carnage against them, and even better is that they have no humanity or are mostly just simple-minded beasts, so Guts has no reason to hold back or feel any sympathy. He even attributes this moment being similar to the 100-man battle, but even more so as he's able to unleash a more satisfying bloodshed. At number 5, I have the battle on the beach while Guts has the Berserker armor. This is a list of Berserk moments, so as we get higher, we're going to have a few Berserker armor moments. And if you want to know the full extent of what the armor does and how it works, I do have a video on that linked down below. But real quick, the armor accesses the rage and dark emotions within Guts and brings them to the surface in an attempt to allow him to fight at his maximum potential with nothing holding him back, even eliminating the ability to feel pain. But this also comes with severe drawbacks, such as not even knowing if you're injured, so you could essentially just bleed out and die while wearing the armor. Or the next thing is the loss of one's ego. With trauma built up as much as Guts has, his inner darkness, his beast of darkness, is much stronger than that of the average person's. Basked within the darkness and urge to kill, Guts can't even discern his friends from his enemies. And as Guts finishes off the last monster, he begins to turn his sword towards his companions. And it took the existence of the Moonlight Boy and some help from Shirke to tap into Guts' consciousness in order to bring him back to his senses. Okay, now that we're getting towards the top of the list, some of these picks are going to get a little bit more serious. Number 4 is when Guts assaulted Casca, and I count this as a berserk moment because it's a moment where the Beast of Darkness fully comes into control and Guts loses himself within his frustrations. Having the love of your life lose her mind to the point where she regresses to the mind state of a child, well, that's hard enough. But then Guts decides to take her with him on his journey, and she is constantly trying to run away from him. She shows disdain for him. He can't communicate with her at all. He can't be intimate with her. And having her around is a constant reminder of everything that he's lost. Not to mention the fact that demons are still coming for him at all times because of the brand. He can't get a full night's sleep, and he's fighting now to protect both himself and Casca, who is defenseless. The man is physically and mentally exhausted, and that voice in the back of his head keeps telling him that he would be better off without Casca, to just get rid of her, kill her, focus on vengeance, don't worry about it. That she's the only thing in the way of him being nothing but vengeance going after Griffith. All of these things combine to Guts' moment of weakness, and he briefly attempts to let his frustrations out on Casca herself, pinning her down, kissing her, and biting her breast. Though he does soon bring himself back to his senses, this is such an extreme moment because, one, Guts scares himself to the point where he accepts companions, not because he wants them, but he doesn't trust himself to be alone with Casca. I think it's an incredibly important moment in the story because it shows just how broken Guts has become, and also that everything he had done to that point, the isolation, the killings, the Black Swordsman era, the Beast of Darkness, all of that had a ripple effect that stays within him, and it's always something that he's fighting to overcome. It's a moment of pure tragedy and also a challenge for the reader to accept and understand moving forward in the story. At number 3, I'm putting the introduction of the Berserker armor, even more powerful in overtaking Guts than the other example because Guts was not expecting any of it. He actually had no concept of what the Berserker armor did when he put it on, only that it was either wear this or die. But the 2 Berserker armor chapters that introduce it is the culmination of all the teases of the Beast of Darkness and what we see when Guts fully goes all out, with nothing, not even pain, being able to hold him back. The power boost simply comes from him being able to push himself farther than his limiting human fears and consciousness, and the damage is destructive as all fuck, treating Grunbeld, who is basically a giant dragon made of crystals, like his plaything. Yeah, Guts is an absolute savage in this moment. But not as much as my moment number 2. I gotta go with Guts versus Rosine. This is before the Berserker armor, and the extent that Guts goes in order to kill this apostle is absolutely unreal. Here is our true origins of the Beast of Darkness concept, at least in terms of the narrative showing us Guts is choosing to cut everything else off and think of nothing except the desire to kill. He is on a revenge mission to exterminate all apostles, and he doesn't care how much damage he does to his own body in order to achieve that. Guts stops at nothing, and I mean nothing, to take Rosine down. He burns down an entire forest, destroys cocoons of children, one falls onto his head and he just bites through its intestines because he doesn't give a flying fuck at this point. He takes a stinger through the goddamn face, and look at this. Imagine you just stab somebody in their face, and they're still looking at you like this. Come on. He breaks his hand, he wraps his sword around it so he can still swing it. Just this entire segment of the story is Guts at his absolute brutalist. And my number one, and you probably saw this coming a mile away, of course it's during the eclipse. Obviously, one does not violently chop off their own arm in order to dead charge a demonic deity-like figure without being in a blinding berserker rage. You take the man that you admired and respected, went through hell to save, only to have him agree to sacrifice you and all of your friends, the only ones that you ever knew as your family, and then to viciously sexually assault your girl right in front of you. Guts broke and never recovered from this moment. The very last thing he saw with his right eye before it was gouged out was the image of this happening. Some people ask why Guts uses the blunt edge of the broken sword to try to cut his arm off and not the blade, but when I look at this, I'm not seeing someone who can even think clearly enough to discern blade from blunt. Guts is lashing out wildly in an extreme panic. There are no actual thoughts going through his head. It is just an alarm in his mind and body that's going off louder than anything he's ever experienced. He's just striking because all he knows is arm must be free, so can kill. That's it. This iconic image says it all. This is no longer Guts at this moment. This is just the pure embodiment of pain and rage. Trauma that affected him so deeply that it is the very crux of the entire series, and attributed to why we even call it Berserk. Why did the Black Swordsman happen? Why is Guts Berserk? Because of this moment right here. And there you have it, guys. This was my list of the top 10 moments where Guts went berserk, but also feel free to leave yours down below in the comments as well. Also, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel so you can help me hit 100K and come to my pizza party. Other than that, guys, I thank you for watching this video. I really, really do appreciate it. I thank you for all the support you guys have given me over the years, and I hope to repay it to you someday, hopefully with decent content to watch. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk to you next time.